The Complete Grimm's Fairy Tales. Sweetheart Roland. There was once upon a time a woman who was a real witch and had two daughters, one ugly and wicked, and this one she loved because this was her own daughter, and one beautiful and good, and this one she hated because this was her stepdaughter. The stepdaughter once had on a pretty apron, which the other fancied so much she became envious and told her mother that she must and would have that apron. Be quiet, my child, said the old woman. You shall have it. Your stepsister has long deserved death, and tonight when she is asleep I will come and cut her head off. Only be careful that you are on the far side of the bed and push her well onto the front. It would have been all over with the poor girl if she had not just been standing in the corner and heard everything. All day long she dared not go to the doors, and when the bedtime had come, the witch's daughter got into the bed first, so as to lie on the far side. But when she was asleep, the other pushed her gently to the front and took her place at the back, close to the wall. In the night, the old woman came creeping in, and she held an axe in her right hand and felt her left to see if anyone was lying on the outside. And then she grasped the axe in both hands and cut off her own child's head. When she had gone away, the girl got up and went to her sweetheart, who was called Roland, and knocked at his door. When he came out, she said, "Listen, dearest Roland, we must fly in all haste. My stepmother wanted to kill me, but she has struck down her own child. When daylight comes and she sees what she has done, we shall be lost." "But," said Roland, "I counsel you first to take away her magic wand, and we cannot escape if she pursues us." The maiden fetched the magic wand and took the dead girl's head and dropped 3 drops of blood onto the ground, and in the front bed, and one in the kitchen, and one on the stairs, and then she hurried away with her lover. When the old witch got up the next morning, she called to her daughter and wanted to give her the apron. But she did not come, and then the witch cried, "Where are you?" "Here on the stairs. I am sweeping," answered the first drop of blood. And the woman went out, but saw no one on the stairs. And she cried again, "Where are you?" "Here in the kitchen. I am warming myself," cried the second drop of blood. And she went into the kitchen and found no one. Then she cried again, "Where are you?" Here in the bed. I am sleeping," cried the third drop of blood. And she went into the room. And what did she see there? Her own child, whose head had been cut off and was bathed in blood. The witch fell into a passion and sprung to the window, and there she could kept forth quite far into the world, and she perceived her stepdaughter hurrying away with the sweetheart Roland. "That shall not help you," cried she. "Even if you've got a long way off, you shall not escape me." And she put on her many leek boots, which she covered an hour's walk at every step, and it was not long before she overtook them. The girl, however, when she saw the old woman striding toward her, changed with her magic wand her sweetheart Roland into a lake, and herself into a duck swimming in the middle of it. The witch placed herself on the shore and threw breadcrumbs in, and went to endless trouble to entice the duck. But the duck did not let herself be enticed, and the old woman had to go home at night as she had come. As this girl and her sweetheart Roland resumed their natural shapes again, they walked on the whole night until daybreak. Then the maiden changed herself into a beautiful flower which stood in the middle of a briar hatch, and her sweetheart Roland into a fiddler. And it was not long before the witch came striding up toward them and said to the musician, "Dear musician, may I pluck that beautiful flower for myself?" "Ah, yes," he replied, "I will play to you while you do it." As she was hastily creeping into the hedge and was going to pluck the flower, knowing perfectly well who the flower was, he began to play, whether she would or not. She was forced to dance, for it was a magical dance. The faster he played, the more violent springs she forced to make, and the thorns tore her clothes from her body, and she pricked her and wounded her until she bled. But he did not stop, and she had to dance until she lay dead on the ground. As they were now set free, Roland said, "Now I will go to my father and arrange for our wedding. In the meantime, I stay here and wait for you," said the girl, "and no one may recognize me, and I will change myself into a red stone landmark." Then Roland went away, and the girl stood like a red landmark in the field and waited for her beloved. But when Roland got home, he fell into the snares of another, and was so fascinated him that he forgot the maiden. The poor girl remained there for a long time, but at length he did not return at all, and she was sad and changed herself into a flower, and thought, "Someone will surely come this way and trample me down." It befell, however, that a shepherd kept his sheep in the field and saw the flower, and it was so pretty he plucked it and took it with him and laid it away in his chest. From that time forth, strange things happened in the shepherd's house. When he arose in the morning, all the work was already done, and the room was swept, and the table benches cleaned, and the fire on the hearth was lit, and the water was fetched, and at noon, when he came home, the table was laid and a good dinner served. He could not conceive how this came to pass, for he never saw a human being in his house, and no one could have concealed himself in it. And he was certainly pleased with his good attendance, but still, at last, he was so afraid he went to a wise woman and asked for her advice. And the wise woman said, "There's some kind of enchantment behind it. Listen very early some morning if anything moved in the room, and if you see anything, no matter what it is, throw a white cloth over it, and then the magic will be stopped." The shepherd did as he was bade of him, and the next morning, just as day dawned, he saw the chest open and the flower come out. Swiftly he sprang toward it and threw a white cloth over it. Instantly the transformation came to an end, and a beautiful girl stood before him, who admitted she had been the flower, and that was up to this time attending to his housekeeping. She told him her story, and she was pleased. He asked her if she would marry him, but she answered no, for she wanted to remain faithful to her sweetheart Roland, although he had deserted her. Nevertheless, she promised not to go away, but continue keeping house for the shepherd. And now the time drew near when Roland's wedding was to be celebrated, and then, according to old custom of the country, it was announced that all girls were to be present at it and sing in honor of the bridal pair. When the faithful maiden heard of this, she grew so sad that she thought her heart would break, and she would not go hither. And but the other girls came and took her. And when it came her turn to sing, she stepped back until she at last was the only one left, and then she could not refuse. But when she began her song, it reached Roland's ears, and he sprang up and cried, "I know that voice. That is the true bride, and I will have no other." Everything had been forgotten, and which had vanished from his mind, and he suddenly came home again to his heart. Then the faithful maiden held her wedding with her sweetheart Roland, and the grief came to an end, and the joy began.